What if the most unforgettable love stories are not born from bold confessions or dramatic pursuits, but from a quiet moment when one heart moves faster than words can follow, when a single glance rewrites an emotional destiny without asking for permission? And that is where the story of Song Weilong and Zhao Jinmai truly begins, not with noise, certainty, or promises, but with recognition, because from the very first instant his eyes meet her presence, something irreversible happens inside him. A shift so subtle yet so powerful that it alters the rhythm of his emotional world before he even understands it himself. And this is the beauty of a love where he falls first, deeply and silently, choosing patience over impulse, restraint over possession, and presence over performance, while she, unaware at first, continues walking her own path with calm self-assurance, emotional balance, and a quiet strength that does not demand attention yet naturally commands it, because Zhao Jinmai's character is written not to overwhelm but to endure, not to rush but to observe, and it is precisely this emotional steadiness that draws him closer even as he keeps his distance. Understanding instinctively that real love does not need to be announced loudly to be real, so he watches, listens, and learns, noticing the small habits, the unspoken moods, the silences that reveal more than dialogue ever could. And his affection becomes visible not through dramatic gestures, but through consistency, reliability, and the way he stays without asking to be chosen, because loving first means accepting imbalance, and he accepts it willingly, allowing her the freedom to exist without pressure, without emotional debt, without expectation. While from the outside this restraint might appear cold or distant, but in truth it is respect in its purest form, a love that refuses to pull, rush, or demand, choosing instead to wait, and as time moves forward, her heart begins its own quiet transformation, not sparked by intensity but shaped by safety, trust, and the realization that he has become a constant presence in her emotional landscape, someone whose calm steadiness offers warmth rather than distraction, shelter rather than noise. Until one day she understands that what she feels is no longer just comfort but certainty, and when she falls, she does so fully, without fear, because her love is not reactive but rooted, and some of the most intimate moments between them happen in silence, where words are unnecessary and stillness becomes a shared language filled with understanding, emotional safety, and unspoken devotion, moments where they simply exist side by side, proving that connection does not always need explanation, and this warmth, especially in moments of uncertainty or emotional fatigue, becomes the defining image of their bond, because his love does not overwhelm or attempt to fix her world, it simply stays, offering quiet reassurance that heals without asking to be acknowledged, and through this love they both change gently rather than dramatically, as he learns to open himself emotionally and allow vulnerability without losing control, while she learns that relying on someone does not mean losing independence. And their growth remains balanced, never overshadowing one another, showing that true love does not require sacrifice of identity, but encourages self-discovery, and when misunderstandings inevitably arise, they do not become weapons or excuses for distance, but opportunities for communication, reflection, and return, revealing emotional maturity rather than fragility, because their relationship is not defined by a single confession or turning point, but by daily choice. By his decision to remain patient, her decision to trust, and their shared commitment to consistency over intensity, understanding over ego, and presence over absence, and even when the story pauses without offering absolute certainty, that openness feels intentional, rather than incomplete, mirroring real life where love continues beyond the frame, sustained not by reassurance, but by quiet confidence, and this is why their story resonates so deeply, because it refuses exaggeration and embraces emotional truth, reminding us that love can be slow yet inevitable, quiet yet profound, and enduring precisely because it does not shout. Yet beyond this surface of tenderness lies a deeper emotional architecture that makes their connection feel unusually real. Because this love is not built on idealized perfection but on attentiveness, on noticing how another person breathes through difficult moments, how they retreat when overwhelmed, how they soften when they feel safe. And Song Weilong's character understands this instinctively, realizing that love is not proven through grand declarations, but through the discipline of staying emotionally available even when nothing is guaranteed, and there is a quiet courage in loving this way. Because it means choosing vulnerability without assurance of return, choosing consistency without applause, choosing patience in a world that rewards urgency, and this internal struggle is visible in the way he holds himself. In the moments where his restraint costs him more than action ever would, because every unspoken feeling is a weight he carries alone, yet he carries it willingly, believing that her freedom matters more than his relief, and Zhao Jinmai's character, though slower to arrive emotionally, is no less profound in her journey, because her caution is not indifference, but self-awareness, a recognition that real connection should feel safe before it feels intoxicating, and she observes him not for what he says, but for what he does when no one is watching. How he shows up without being asked, how his presence remains steady even in uncertainty, how he never tries to shape her into a version that suits him better, and slowly this consistency dissolves her hesitation, replacing it with trust, and trust is the foundation upon which her love grows, not suddenly but steadily, until it becomes something she can lean into without losing herself. And what makes this progression so emotionally resonant is that it mirrors real emotional timing, where two people rarely arrive at the same feeling at the same moment, and love becomes not about synchronization but accommodation, about allowing different emotional rhythms to coexist without conflict. And this is where their silence becomes meaningful, because silence is where pressure disappears and authenticity remains, where they can be present without performing emotion, where comfort replaces explanation, and in these moments the audience feels something rare, a love that breathes, that allows space, that trusts stillness, and this trust extends into conflict as well, because when misunderstandings surface, they are not treated as betrayals, but as moments of clarification, and instead of retreating into pride or emotional punishment, they choose to engage honestly, to listen rather than defend, to return rather than disappear, showing a maturity that is increasingly rare in on-screen romances, and each resolution deepens rather than diminishes their bond, reinforcing the idea that love is not fragile when it is built on respect, and even the warmth that defines their relationship is not flashy but sustaining, like a light left on in winter, not blinding but reassuring, and this warmth becomes symbolic of the way his love shelters without enclosing, the way her trust welcomes without surrendering autonomy, and together they form a partnership that feels lived in rather than idealized, grounded rather than dramatic. And as the story approaches its open-ended pause, the absence of final certainty feels intentional, because certainty was never the point. Presence was, and their love feels strong enough to exist beyond narrative closure, beyond the camera's gaze, because it has already proven itself through repetition, through choice, through quiet endurance, and this is why so many viewers recognize themselves in this story, because it speaks to those who have loved carefully, who have waited without guarantees, who have chosen sincerity over spectacle, and who understand that the deepest connections are often the least visible, and in the end, this is not simply a romance, but a meditation on timing, emotional integrity, and the courage it takes to love without controlling, where he falls first without regret, she follows without fear, and together they create a love that does not announce itself loudly but stays, warms, and endures, where his eyes stopped first, her heart eventually arrived, and from that moment on, love became something they shared in silence. Thank you for watching until the very end. If this story touched you or reminded you of a quiet love in your own life, please support the channel by subscribing to 24H News, TM, for more emotionally driven storytelling and deep character analysis. And don't forget to leave a comment below and share your thoughts, because your voice matters and may resonate with someone who needs it today.